All right. Good afternoon and welcome everybody. This webinar today is part of the Unpacking Coaching Webinar Series that we put on at the National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations. My name's Mary Louise Hemmeter and I'm going to host the webinar today. Our topic today is all hands on deck, defining the role of mental health consultation and supports within the coaching context. I'm really excited today to have two really fabulous presenters, Amy Hunter and Ellie Martin. And I think I'll just pause and let Amy and Ellie introduce themselves.
Thanks, Mary Louise. It's great to be here with both of you. I'm Amy Hunter. I'm at Georgetown University and I'm one of the faculty on the Pyramid Model Innovations. And it's great to be here. As Mary Louise said, this is unprecedented, unusual times. And we really appreciate you taking the time out of your probably unusual circumstances. Whatever circumstances you're in is probably not the norm. So we talked about trying to make this as relevant as possible and put your questions in the chat box. If there's a particular question you have about how this fits with what your life is right now, please feel free to ask away in the chat. I mean, in the question and answer, sorry, in the question and answer box. And we'll see if we can help you out in terms of being as relevant as possible. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Ellie Martin. I'm located in Bozeman, Montana. I work as an infant and early childhood mental health consultant with a variety of programs here. And I also work in systems building context around mental health and well-being at the community and state level in Montana.
Thanks, Amy and Ellie. So I want to just take a minute to kind of situate what we're going to be doing in context. And I'm going to do this really briefly, and then Amy and Ellie are going to talk about a lot of these issues in much more detail as we go through the webinar. So this webinar series is really geared towards people who are serving in the role of a pyramid model coach. And in a lot of times, pyramid model coaches are working in programs where there are also early childhood mental health consultants. Sometimes early childhood mental health consultants are serving as pyramid model coaches. Some programs don't have either, but what we really feel strongly about is that we want programs to have as much support as they can around supporting children's social emotional competence and preventing challenging behavior and other mental health issues. And so we're trying to really help people see how pyramid model coaches and early childhood mental health consultants might work together to deliver more comprehensive services. And we recognize that there are places where those roles overlap and there are places where they don't. And what we really want to do today is unpack that for you. And I don't think there is a right way or a wrong way, but really different ways to looking at how people who serve in these roles can work together to support all children. So with that being said, I am just going to get us started by asking Amy to talk a little bit about mental health consultants, early childhood mental health consultants, and how they work with early childhood programs.
Great. Thank you, Mary Louise. And so we have a few slides where I'll be talking to you just so that we're all on the same page about what we mean when we say infant early childhood mental health consultation. And some of you may have participated in previous webinars where we have had two for Pyramid Model Innovations on this topic. And if you want more in-depth information on mental health consultation, those are recorded and they're on the Pyramid Model Innovations website, so you can take a look at those. But just so that we're all on the same page here for this discussion, mental health consultation pairs a mental health consultant, which is really and Head Start, a licensed or certified mental health professional. And in broadly consensus of the field is at least a master's prepared mental health professional. So pairing a mental health professional with people who work with young children and their families, with the goal of building the capacity of those other folks who work with young children and their families, building their capacity to support social emotional development and to support early childhood or infant mental health. And you're going to hear me sort of use those terms synonymously, social emotional development with infant early childhood mental health. They really mean the same thing. And so why don't we go to the next slide? So mental health consultation is not, sometimes it's easier to figure out what it isn't than to, clarify all that it is. But one of the things that it definitely isn't is it's not about fixing kids or fixing children. And it's actually not about providing therapy. So mental health consultation can in many ways be contrasted with therapy. And some mental health consultants also have a different role. They have two jobs essentially sometimes. They have another job where they provide therapy sometimes, but mental health consultation in and of itself as an activity is not therapy. It is prevention-based and promotion-based. It really pairs, again, that mental health professional with other folks who work with young children and families. Those could be teachers. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but they might be the directors of early childhood programs. They might be home visitors. There's also mental health consultants in primary care, supporting pediatricians and pediatric practices. There's also mental health consultation models happening in child welfare, supporting those folks who work with young children and their families in a child welfare context. So it's really about helping those caregivers, those professionals know more and feel more equipped to promote that early childhood mental health. And I think we've got a couple more, at least one more slide, kind of defining what it is. So again, here we're showing, sort of what it is and what it isn't. It's not direct service. So mental health consultants sometimes don't even work directly with children and families at all. So they might be in the classroom, they might be observing, they might be working with children, but that is not their sole goal. If they're working directly with children or families, it's in the context of supporting the other people who are there more frequently. Maybe the teacher asked them to model, telling a social story or model using a story and talking about mental health concepts with children, or model some kind of practice, but that would be really in the context only of the teacher asking them to do that or them talking about doing that, so that it's really supporting other people to be able to feel more confident and competent. What else do I want to say about this? So it is, as I mentioned, we often refer to it as an indirect service, preventative promotion. Often mental health consultants are called in when there is a concern or when there is a sort of problem behavior or something that staff are concerned about. However, ideally, we would be trying to prevent those concerns from occurring. And so, it happens certainly that they're called in when there are concerns sometimes, but ideally it would be to prevent those concerns from occurring in the first place. So we can go to the next slide.
Hey, Amy, I just want to say one thing related to that, which is I think that there was a period of time where teachers, classroom staff often thought that the mental health consultant was going to come do something to the child versus come support them. And it seems like things have shifted now, but is that still something you guys encounter? Or do you think the field is more kind of aware of the role of mental health consultants?
I love that question. And I would like to believe that with the efforts that it has shifted, there certainly are many, many, many more mental health consultation sort of state and community-wide efforts underway. And I think, you know, there's been national centers on mental health consultation. Certainly Head Start has promoted that idea of, you know, being really clear about what mental health consultation is, you know, that it's not direct service, that it's not treatment, that it really is to support the capacities of others. And the field of mental health consultation is growing so much and so quickly that I do think, and I'd like to think that that message is getting out there. But at the same time, I want to say that I think often there are situations where teachers or whoever it might be that are working with children feel really stressed. And so they wish, right? You know, we all wish there was some quick fix, that there was some, you know, person who had all the answers, who could come in and you know, swoop up and make things better. And so I think that wish and that desire that we probably all have, that there's someone out there who has the magic, you know, will always be there. But I think the understanding of what the concept is increasing. I see Ellie nodding her head. Do you want to chime in there at all?
Yeah, it resonates with me based on our work in Montana has been fairly new and young in implementation of this type of service, and it's not available across the state. So the way I've been really looking at it, with every new opportunity or site that I work with, it's an opportunity to sort of build relationship about what it is that we can do. And I feel like I do that conversation every time. And it's really about, okay, what can we do and how can we support, and what are some opportunities to alleviate that stress that folks might experience with one particular child or a behavior. And so I really try to kind of normalize it and support people with what they need in the moment too.
Well, Ellie and Amy, you'll, I guess, maybe be a little disappointed to hear that we're getting things in the Q&A that say, no, in fact, teachers do still think mental health consultants are going to wave a magic wand. So I think, I mean, I would guess that that there is still a whole lot of that. And there's probably a lot less than there was, you know, 10 years ago. But anyway.
I think it's almost like a natural, I was just gonna say, I think it's probably there, that will probably always be there, just in terms of the wish, right? Like, even if people understand that that's not your role,
True.
Wouldn't it be so lovely if someone could come in and make it all better, right? So I think that desire will always be there. And it might help to talk a little bit about sort of these different levels of consultation, that sometimes we call them levels, sometimes we call them types. But what we do know is when the mental health consultant sort of works across all of these levels, the consultant or the program really gets the biggest bang for their buck out of the consultant, in terms of mental health consultation is most effective when they address all three of these levels. So I'm going to talk about each one just for a second here. But the first one is child and family, and that's probably the most typical of what people think when they think of mental health consultation. To your point, Mary Louise, you know, come in and help me with this child, or help me with this family that, you know, if I'm a home visitor. And certainly that is a type or a level of mental health consultation to address, you know, concerns or help out to really be reflecting and thinking through what's happening with one child or one family. That's certainly an important aspect of mental health consultation. Another level of mental health consultation that I would say these are all equally as important is looking in the center-based care, looking at the classroom or the whole group. So what's happening in the entire classroom? You know, how are feelings being talked about? What do routines look like? You know, what's the mental health climate of the classroom? All of that great pyramid stuff. But really the whole, what's happening for all children in a classroom. And then the programmatic level of consultation is really the mental health consultant meeting with the director of the program to think about what's the mental health climate of the whole program. So what are the policies? What are the procedures? How are families welcomed in the program? You know, what is staff mental health like, or staff, you know, how does staff feel? Staff wellness, you know, what is it like to work in this program? What is it like to walk in the door if I'm a staff person? What is it like to walk in the door if I'm a family, if I'm a child? You know, how are families greeted? All of that is really important and a really great role for the mental health consultant to talk to the director about. And you can see, you know, these aren't, you know, so you do one, you do the next, you do another. They're very fluid and they happen all at the same time. And then I think Ellie is going to maybe talk a little bit about a systems level as well. So sometimes mental health consultants are involved in their community or more at another level. Do you want to say a little bit about that, Ellie?
Sure, yes, thanks. So in Montana, as I had mentioned earlier, we are fairly new in implementation of consultation at a broader level than just in individual sites that may be aware of it on their own. So for us, we have focused primarily on programmatic level consultation and then worked our way into individual classrooms at sites, and then at times moved into child and family consultation if that level of need was asked of us. So the other way that we've really engaged with this work is at the systems level, where we've been educating and advocating with state level partners about the importance of this work, and also how to make some general policy and funding mechanisms available for this type of service to be more accessible across our whole state. So some of my work has been at that level as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important role.
Yeah, it's all about building the systems that will support this work, right? Before we go on, we've had a couple of questions, Amy, about whether you have to be certified to be a mental health consultant.
So in Head Start, I think I see one of the questions, I don't know if it was specific, well, but in Head Start, you have to be certified or licensed in your state to be a mental health consultant in Head Start. Those are part of the performance standards for Head Start. If it's not part of Head Start, so if you're maybe in a program providing consultation to childcare or part of a mental health consultation program, there isn't, you know, it would be based on the program that you work for. They would determine whether they require a license or some kind of state certification. There's general field consensus across sort of experts in mental health consultation that it should be someone with a mental health master's level. But sometimes I think different programs decide if you're working towards your license or you're working in a team where there's a variety of different folks with different levels of expertise. That's really up to the program.
All right, and then I'm going to ask you just one other question and then we'll move on, so there have been a couple of questions related to this slide around supporting families and whether you might, as one of these three levels or whatever, think about developing a plan that would help a parent at home. Would that be part of mental health consultation? And is mental health consultation ever a part of home visiting programs?
I'm going to take that. Those are great questions. I love it that people are asking so many questions. I'm going to take the second question first. So there are definitely mental health consultants as part of home visiting programs. And the way that often works is the mental health consultant meets with the home visitors and talks to the home visitors about what they're experiencing in their home visiting and, you know, what kind of concerns they have. And really the role of the mental health consultant is supporting that home visitor to then go into the home visits to support the children and the families, and really the families, so that they can support children's social emotional development. So again, it's that indirect capacity building for the home visitor. And so I think in some ways that kind of addresses the question about would they help families? I think they would. Certainly mental health consultants could help families, but ideally they would be helping the staff help the families. And so that's not to say they would never meet with the family, but I think most often they might meet with the family with a home visitor or with a family advocate or family service worker or teacher, you know, so that then that other person kind of sees what's happening in that meeting, and maybe the next time they might have increased capacity to do that on their own.
All right, one more question that can probably be really quick. Someone's asking about whether a person who is board certified in behavior analysis, or so a BCBA person could be considered a mental health consultant. Do you know the answer to that?
Well, I think the answer to that is different in different places. There's no sort of standard, you know, like license or certification or endorsement or anything that sort of says this is who you have to be a mental health consultant. So, you know, Head Start has that requirement about state license and certification. So I'm not sure if that would be considered part of a state's certification. There is no sort of exact, you know, license or degree or so I think, you know, it would kind of depend on who's hiring and what they're looking for, and, you know, the your individual experience and clinical background.
And I think this actually kind of moves us to what we were going to talk about next a little bit anyway, because I think that one of the questions that lots of people have, Ashley, we can move to the next slide. One of the questions that people often have is how does mental health consultation overlap with people serving in the role of a coach, a pyramid model coach specifically? For example, I know lots of people who are BCBA trained who serve as pyramid model coaches, and there's definitely overlap in what they do and what the early childhood mental health consultant talks about or thinks about. So I can't remember which one of you is going to take this one, but how does mental health consultation overlap with the role of a pyramid model coach?
Well, probably you can remember because we're both taking it.
Okay. Yeah. I have both your names written down.
Yeah. So I think I'll start and then Ellie can jump in. But what we did on this graphic is just try to show a few different examples, I think, of something that you've already sort of put in context, Mary Louise. But we were just trying to think about all the different, you know, possibilities of how mental health consultation and the pyramid coaching might go together, and we came up with sort of these four, but you all might have some others. But you certainly can have mental health consultation without a pyramid model coach. That's very common. It's also very common to have pyramid coaching without mental health consultation. There are many instances, including Ellie's example, where pyramid coaching and mental health consultation coexist. I work with a program in New York City where there is a mental health consultant and a coach in the same classrooms often. And then sometimes the consultant also is a pyramid coach. So that mental health consultant knows the pyramid model really well and is coaching teachers on those pyramid model practices. So those were some of the different ways we thought of, and there's, regardless of sort of how this is structured, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And I think there's often tremendous overlap between coaching and mental health consultation. Ellie, did you want to add?
Yeah, just from a Montana perspective, I think pyramid coaching has been a more robust service available across the state. So sites in our state are more familiar with that. And where we have piloted consultation alongside coaches, there are even other coaches in our same childcare resource and referral agencies who are not in close connection with consultant as well. So we're seeing kind of a blended model in a variety of ways across the state. And so we're finding opportunities to kind of cross-pollinate information and resources to make sense of what people are seeing and needing, and seeing what that can look like.
And I think on the next slide, we have a poll to hear from all of you about what approach best describes the program that you're in. So are you a consultant and there's no pyramid coaching where you are? Are you a pyramid coach and there's no consultation where you are? Are you working together, side by side, or at least, touching the same program? Or are you the same person? You do both of these things, or maybe something else. And if you're something else, feel free to use the question and answer box to tell us how it works in your program. We can't see it, but I hope you're filling out the poll. And we'll talk about the results in a minute.
There we go. Well, so it looks like we have a little bit of everybody on the call, which is actually really exciting. Looks like we have more pyramid model coaching with support of mental health consultants, which isn't surprising given that one of our primary audience for this webinar series are pyramid model coaches. I'm interested to know what none of the above means, and maybe some of y'all are administrators who are interested in learning more about this, or teachers. You can write that in the Q&A box, and we'll try to follow up a little bit about that as we move through the rest of the webinar. Amy or Ellie, do you want to comment on the results?
I just would say that it's probably quite representative of the larger field, a little bit of everything.
I agree.
All right. Well, so I think we'll move on, and I actually think the next question that we have, which I believe is for you, Ellie, will answer some of the questions that people are typing in, and that is, in what ways can mental health consultants support pyramid model coaches?
So I think about this as an opportunity to really kind of connect with the coach and make sense of what they may be trying to address. So I think sometimes that programs can be experiencing a need that's larger than one person can solve independently. So working collaboratively with a coach can really uncover solutions that may not be apparent when we're just trying to tackle something on our own. I think about being able to bring questions to help us understand what might be underneath behaviors if we're thinking about a specific child, and being able to work with a pyramid model coach and program staff to uncover some of the factors that may be influencing that behavior as well. So just really wanting to be seen as part of the team and uncovering the wisdom that exists within the group that I work with. So that's one of the ways that I try to support both a pyramid coach and program staff around children. When I think about the support that I can offer to a pyramid model coach who may be navigating some challenges with a staff person, either being asked to provide resources around a mental health need that they may have uncovered, or just being available for exploring different factors related to burnout. I find that if we work together to support program staff, we often find a solution that works best for everyone.
Yeah, and I would just jump in a little bit on, just to piggyback on what you were saying, Ellie, when you were talking about burnout, it made me think, one of the roles of the mental health consultant that I've been hearing a lot about, and actually we've been focusing on, is that idea of staff wellness. And I mentioned, you know, the programmatic mental health consultation is really helping the director to see how important it is to build in pieces of taking care of the staff. And so helping the coach to take care of herself, because this is really hard work. Another way I think they can team is, you know, as you said, reflect together, and the mental health consultant can bring sort of that trauma-informed lens to the partnership. And it makes me think of actually an example of when I was in a program and a coach was working with a teacher, and the teacher got really, really upset because a child had been using a broom in the classroom, and, you know, I think inadvertently hit the teacher using the broom, and the teacher got extremely upset and said to her coach, you know, I won't let this child abuse me. I won't be abused. And she was clearly, you know, very, very upset, and the coach wasn't quite sure, you know, what happened or where that came from. And so that was a really great place for the mental health consultant to sort of engage, you know, and explore what was going on. And it turned out that, in fact, the teacher had had an experience in an abusive relationship. And so this particular instance really triggered someone to come up. And so that was a great example where, you know, it was a really complex emotional situation, but having the two, the coach and the mental health consultant, to kind of explore that together was really helpful.
It also dawns on me as you were talking, Amy, that once we are able to go back to school in the coming weeks or months, whenever kids and teachers are back at school, how important it's going to be for pyramid model coaches to help teachers be thinking about consistency and predictability and getting back in a routine, and yet knowing that those teachers are going to be coming back from a really rough time as well, and how important it's going to be for collaboration to exist at that time.
And I think you'll hear us both talking about this theme of how hard this work is. And so, you know, we need each other to really be able to reflect and bounce back and, you know, talk and explore these things. This is not, you know, it's hard work to do alone.
There's enough work for us all to do, and to do it together for sure. So, all right. Well, so can y'all talk a little bit, I think, Ellie, about what advice you have for building or initiating and building a partnership between coaches and mental health consultants. And I'm thinking a little bit about how I know in Montana y'all have done that, y'all have been really intentional about this, but I think these are often people who are coaching are coming from really different backgrounds than mental health consultants. So I'd love to know your thoughts about that.
Great. Yeah, thanks. And I've noticed a couple of questions that relate to really what are the differences between a pyramid model coach and a mental health consultant. And I think I'll go into that in a later slide where I really look at the Montana perspective that we've been taking, but I'm sure if people need additional information beyond that, we can touch on that later in the webinar as well. When I think about partnerships, I think about what is it that I need to know to really understand what another person does within their work and how I can best complement the work that's happening. Part of that is going to be really being clear about the roles that we each will take. What has really helped me in building partnerships with the pyramid model coaches with whom I work has been to start with regular collaborative meetings where we meet we meet every other week for an hour and a half each meeting. And it's an opportunity for us to give each other updates about our programs and really kind of uncover some of stuck points or needs that we may have to best support the programs that we serve. I also rely on one-on-one touch points with the coaches that I work with so that we can make sure we're remaining on the same page and sometimes group settings aren't the easiest for different folks to be able to really get into good conversations. So I really like being able to do one-on-ones as well. And then I think that it's valuable to shadow each other in our work and be able to then debrief afterwards about what it was that we were doing within those settings. Because I think if you look at just the surface of the titles of our work, if we're supporting the social and emotional development of children and families and increasing competence within the providers, that could be a title that's in both coaches and consultants' wheelhouse. So I think it really helps us to then dig in more deeply into what does that look like on the ground. And what I've found with my partners is that it is actually pretty different, and we find that we bring our strengths from our professional capacities in a way that complement each other's roles really well. But if we don't have consistent conversations about how that looks, it can get muddy or confusing, and I just find that consistent engagement is really helpful. And then I've also found that going to trainings together and bringing our own professional lenses to the material is a helpful way to kind of see everyone's different perspectives and know how we can take the learning to new places. So
yeah, I guess I would just add, I mean, yes, all of what you said, but really, I think in some ways the pyramid model itself can be a way to partner, whether it could be pyramid model, it could be something else, but, some kind of common language that you're both, and when you mentioned, Ellie, going to trainings together, I think having some kind of commonality that ties together to build that, that partnership and have a common language, a common way of seeing things, and then talking, as you said, really getting into the nitty gritty of, well, what specifically is your role and my role, and how are we going to figure this out, and how do we explain it to other people so they know as well.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Okay. Oh, yeah. So the question here, which I think Ellie was getting into, is what's the role of the mental health consultant in supporting coaches when they feel like a teacher is stuck or a teacher is resistant to support?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So where I always start is commiserating with the coach around the stuckness, because I know how frustrating that can be from my work in various settings. And so what I like to do is really get curious about what the challenge might be, or what the roadblock is that is creating the sense of stuckness. And then from there, identifying different ways to scaffold the coach or the teacher or staff with whom they're maybe stuck in their relationship, and identify if there are opportunities for me as the consultant to join in and support in some way. And so I, have one example of a program director that I was working with and a coach was working with, and we were finding that that person was very resistant to working with two people at the same time. And so what the coach and I have done to support that program director is really more behind the scenes supports between the two of us, and then having one person be the lead with the program director, just to decrease any feelings of overwhelm, because it can be hard when you have a lot of professionals who are offering to help, and really what you want is more time. So there are ways that we've worked together to kind of uncover the stuckness in that way and find solutions.
Yeah. And I would just add, I love that you're talking about really leaning into the stuckness, right? And really understanding, just like we do with children, understanding, helping the coach understand, together what the meaning of the teacher's behavior is, and, where that stuckness is coming from. And, sort of one of the tools that I think many mental health consultants bring is how to have those kinds of difficult conversations, right? Often as mental health professionals, we have to have difficult conversations with folks, or help them have difficult conversations with their partners, with their family members, with their coworkers. And so I think one of the sort of approaches to those kind of conversations can be motivational interviewing. And so many mental health consultants have the motivational interviewing sort of skills in their set of tools as part of their tool bag. And motivational interviewing is really just, again, a strategy, a set of strategies. It's really a set of relational strategies and conversational strategies to help sort of explore people's beliefs about things they might want to change or things they might not want to change, but really, you know, kind of a way of talking about change behaviors. And it's been used in all different kinds of aspects of behavioral change, but they're a great set of tools to really help get at some of what's behind, you know, quote unquote resistance, and what's the meaning of that behavior and how do people feel about change. And I think we have another slide where we're going to highlight for folks some motivational interviewing materials that are available. So this is the IECMHC, great acronym, right? The Early Childhood Learning Knowledge Center. So one-stop shop for all Head Start resources. And if you go to that site, the IECMHC, and type in Motivational Interviewing Suite, you will see a variety of tools that can help you understand and learn more about motivational interviewing. There's a tip sheet, you know, what is motivational interviewing? There are some, I think, pretty cool videos you can watch. One is a video of a teacher talking to a parent using the motivational interviewing strategies. And you can, there's a viewer's guide that sort of lists all the motivational like strategies and concepts all in one place. So if you want to learn more about that, those would be some resources to follow up on.
All right, so our next question for you, Ellie, is what support might be available to coaches? So y'all have talked about great support from mental health consultants, and yet we know from actually some of the comments that there are people who are working in programs where they don't have access to mental health consultants. So where do coaches get the kind of support y'all have been talking about if they don't have access to a mental health consultant?
It's a great question, Mary Louise, thanks. So we have a variety of supports listed here, but one thing I want to bring up is that these may not all be available to everyone. So it's really an opportunity to look at what could be possible in your area. So a couple opportunities that we've tried to cultivate in our area where we don't have very many mental health consultants is these top two. So we have some coaches who have access to a mental health consultant in some of their sites, are then able to bring that learning and knowledge to the work they're doing in their other sites where a mental health consultant cannot be on site or hasn't been engaged on site. We also have the opportunity through something called a community of practice, which is a professional teaching and learning opportunity where you're intentional about what you can bring to a mutual professional group. And so if you have some coaches who have access to mental health consultants participating in a community of practice with other coaches, you can have some really great complementary learning that can happen in those settings. So I think, Amy, you were gonna be able to dive in on the next ones, is that right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so a couple other resources to look in terms of, you know, I think in all of this work, we're constantly trying to build the systems and build services when they don't exist. But a couple places to look might be your state's infant early childhood mental health endorsement. So many states have the infant endorsement system or an infant mental health group. And so that might be a good place to look for this kind of support. Universities, colleges, you know, departments of social work, department of counseling, you know, it's a great way to grow the field of mental health professionals who know something about very young children and group care settings. So often what we're doing is growing the field. And I can't think of a better way to grow a mental health professional to know this work than to sort of be alongside some coaches and in a setting. with, of course, the appropriate supervision and learning. Another way to access maybe some mental health consultation where it doesn't exist is to look to your local Head Start and see if there isn't a way to, partner or pair or share or, just meet with. Every Head Start program is required to have a mental health consultant. Now, of course, every Head Start program is unique and does it differently and has different capacities in this, but each program should at least be able to point you to the person who is doing the mental health consultation to maybe meet with and share and collaborate.
Okay, so I wanted to share this with everyone because it just is a snapshot of how we've come to understand the pyramid model coach and mental health consultant roles within the framework of the pyramid. So this will be available as a resource after the fact on the challengingbehaviors.org website. So you'll be able to get it into a format maybe easier to read if it's too small right now. But I just wanted to highlight that in each of these areas, we provided an example of different things that we do in each of those levels. So this is not exhaustive of what we operate within for these levels, but it just is an opportunity to kind of see some of the differences. And I know we continue to have questions about the differences between pyramid model coach and mental health consultant. And I think I invite you to go and review the webinar that happened last October, because I think a lot of depth into that conversation is available there. So you may get more information that's helpful. For us right now, I just want to highlight that we work at all levels of the system within the pyramid, but our strengths come out at different times based on the needs of the program and the teachers. So in collaboration with my pyramid coaches, I've offered trainings on topics that are peripheral to like pyramid modules, but are relevant and resonating with the staff as they ask for them. So some have included conflict resolution, how to make sense of when a child might need help. So the referral process and what do we do within our community if referrals are needed. Also about how to have difficult conversations with families. And really just focusing also on reflective supervision and consultation and how to support programs to get that type of support within their walls.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy, can I just say one thing real quick, which is I'm thinking about what Ellie said early on about systems level planning and what you were saying about get in touch with your Head Start program because they're, I think ultimately, if we're going to get this level of support to childcare, that it's going to take planning that goes beyond the world of childcare. And that really any planning we're doing in communities should really be looking across our early childhood service delivery systems, because I think we all know examples where people have thought it wasn't possible to use this money to serve this program. And when communities work, they figure out ways to make that happen. So that's way beyond what we can talk about today, but it's something that people should be thinking about.
I love that. And I think that's exactly right, that this field is really growing. And so there are pockets of mental health consultation programming where there wasn't before. Now there's certainly places that it doesn't exist, but it is growing. And so I think that's an exciting aspect of the field. Ellie mentioned, which is great, the webinar. We had 2 previous webinars as part of the Within the Framework webinar series for PMI on mental health consultation. And one of them specifically was on the intersection of pyramid and mental health consultation. So not just pyramid coaching, but pyramid in general. So if you're interested in that, please go to the website, and it's recorded. You can listen to it. And then for those of you who are not coaches, but who are mental health consultants or others, there's a whole series on coaching, and there's some great topics in the coaching webinar series. I was taking a look at it earlier. There's one on equity and culturally responsive practice. There's one on using constructive feedback, and all of those topics are certainly relevant for everyone. So take a look at these recorded webinars. And then here we listed some more materials on the PMI website that dive a little bit deeper into mental health consultation. So we have a couple of fact sheets about mental health consultation and the intersection of mental health consultation and the pyramid model, and then the webinars that we mentioned. And this is probably a summary for all of us. And I think we talked about some of these ideas that, you know, this is tough work, and we all get stuck sometimes. And, you know, I think Lisa Fox, one of our colleagues in this work, really coined this phrase, all hands on deck. And I just love it, because it really does take everyone to work together and support each other to do this often complicated work. And I also like, Mary Louise, that you kind of helped us bring this back into the context of here and now, when programs that are operating now, I know, are under increased stress, certainly. And then programs who are not operating, it's going to be, you know, challenging coming back and regrouping and getting those routines and relationships and everything going again. So it'll be even a more important time for partnership and working together.
All right. Well, I'm going to kind of wrap us up with a few things. Feel free, Ellie and Amy's contacts on here, and Ashley can get in touch with me if y'all have further questions. Obviously, we didn't have enough time to get to everybody's questions today. We've loved your questions, and I've been trying to watch the questions as Amy and Ellie were talking and figuring out how to kind of get as many of them covered as possible. But I just want to remind you that there will be resources related to this webinar on the challengingbehavior.org website. Someone asked a question about how they could find out about future webinars. And I think on challengingbehavior.org, you can sign up for a newsletter, and they're usually in that newsletter, and mailings go out to to the people on that newsletter. So anyway, there's all sorts of ways that you can stay connected with us. And I also think, as Amy was just bringing this back once again to our current situation, that both in our work and in the work Amy's doing on the Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation Center, there's a lot of materials being developed around supporting staff and families during this time. So you might look for those as well. I just wanted to remind you that after we hang up, or after we get off this webinar, you can type this URL into a web browser, and you'll be able to access the survey and get a certificate there as well. I already mentioned going to the website to find all the information Amy and Ellie were just talking about, as well as the resources specific to this webinar. So with that, we'd like to thank you guys for joining us today, and we hope you'll come back to another webinar sometime. Thank you.